Thank you for joining us here live at Aspen City Hall and online. It is August 18th. The City Council is going to begin its work session, and we have two major topics today. The first is dealing with childcare and childcare budgeting for the next year, and the second is West End traffic results. And so we're going to start with childcare, and we'll be on to West End traffic not too long from now. Thank you very much. And if you'll take it away with our presenters.
Hi. I don't know how to get rid of the subtitles right now, so we'll just have to kind of ignore them maybe.
I think he might be able to do it, so.
Okay, hopefully. My name's Megan Monahan, and this is Nancy Nichols, and we are co-managers of Kids First. And on June 23rd, we came to you, and we gave you an overview of our budget and our programs. And at that meeting, you asked us to return to you with a menu of options for potential changes to the financial aid program and also the teacher wage enhancement program. So thank you for this opportunity to come before you and present the options and our recommendations that we developed in collaboration with the Finance Department for expanding support to families and educators.
Thank you.
So you're aware of our mission, but just as a reminder, high-quality early childhood education lays the foundation for a lifelong learning and social-emotional development and community equity. We just want to remind people of that always. And I know we talked about the three-legged stool the last time we met. Today we're going to be discussing several options to support child care sustainability in our community. Financial aid and teacher wage enhancement both have major impacts on all three legs of the sustainability model.
Okay, thank you again for having us today. This first slide is a slide that represents the first specific question that Mayor Richards asked at the last meeting. And that question was, what would the financial aid program look like if families were only expected to pay 7% of their income towards child care costs? And so there's a couple of examples on this table. One of the things that we need to remember is that our data right now is only 39 families. There's a potential of 340 families. So all of our numbers are based on the 39 families. So it's really hard to project what that might look like if it was actually 340 instead of 39. But you can see the first level is we are currently funding 39 families. And if we did it at 10% or 7%, 7% is the last column, it would cost us $848,000. That just doubles our financial aid program. And just at that, it's probably unsustainable to do that. But I did take the formula out a couple more levels just so we would have a realistic look at it. I took 10 random families from our group of 39. That puts us over $1 million a year. And if we had 50 families, that puts us at 2 million. And so if we had 340, it would probably be close to $8 million a year to fund at every family. Their financial aid would be over the 7% threshold of their cost. So this option is really unpredictable to start with and not sustainable. And that's unfortunate because it would be really nice to offer the community those kind of benefits. So from that level, we then began to look at some of the changes.
And just for clarity, isn't 7% somewhat of a national average of what a family should pay?
Yes.
If possible? Okay, thank you. Just want the context.
It's the expected contribution when people are looking at their financials, a mortgage, or any of their costs.
Okay.
And can you remind us what the average threshold is right now in Aspen for families receiving financial aid, what their percentage is?
So it's between 10 and 15 or 20%. It will show on the next slide.
I think, is she talking about the income levels? What level of income is the max that,
So right
of those
now-
39 families?
Again, if we look at the next slide, it will answer those, because this kind of balances where we would go with the calculator. So the calculator itself, that's how we figure out financial aid, goes on poverty level, which is the first light green column. We have 265% on there. That's what CCAP used to be. CCAP's now at 300%. And our original model went up to 650% of poverty level. And then the percentages that families were expected to pay is the second green column. And that went from 10% up to 20% at 600% of poverty level. The dark green is taking those poverty levels, and you can see on the example, we extended that to 750% of poverty level, and then we changed the percentages, moving the lower income people down to 7% and gradually going up by 1%. And then at the 700 and 750, we jumped up 2% on those. Those could be shifted. The main conversation here is all of these can be shifted a little bit in many different ways. And we're proposing that we try a different calculator, perhaps this proposed one, perhaps one that's kind of in the middle. The biggest concern is that we need to be super conservative because the only way we could project numbers was, again, on those current 39 families. I just had a financial aid deadline, and I qualified 10 more families. So we're already at 49 families. If we extend that to 50, 60, 100, you can see quickly it gets out of stability, and we won't be able to fund it. One of the things for you all to think about is stability for families. So it would be really difficult for a family if today, at this deadline, we said, we're going to fund you at $20 a day. And then we realize in 6 months that we can't really afford that. Kids First can't afford that. And then we have to go to those families and say, oh, sorry, we can't afford that. That would be detrimental to the community. So I think for us to find a balance where we're helping the people that need the most help, but we're also addressing that upper end, the 700 to 750 end. But we start conservatively, do a 6-month pilot, and then begin to increase those. The other question that was asked, I think by Sam, was taking out those poverty level percentages or making them wider. And kind of the explanation to that is we have a fixed pie, right? And so you have to have some kind of levels because you're giving people pieces of that, right? So we can make those percentages bigger or smaller. Where the impact is, so at 50, people are getting a change each time their income goes up in the 50%. So they have more often changes. So if instead, let's say we did 300% to 400%, they would be in one of those percents for a longer amount of time. So you just kind of have to decide what feels more stable to a family. The jump between the percents is about $1,000 to $1,300 a month. So for someone
Of
to
income.
Yeah. So for someone to shift from 400 to 450, they would have to increase their income about $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. And we only do the financial aid yearly. So once a year, their income is verified again. We do ask people to let us know if they have a big change so that we can make the changes. But realistically, every May, every family reapplies. So somebody's gonna stay in the same category for a year if they're on the full cycle May to May. And then, I just wanted to also tell you a couple of real easy stories. I qualified a family at only $10 a day. But $10 a day is $200 a month. And that's groceries or part of groceries. So the impact, even at its smallest level, really helps a family. And that family would be somebody at some of those higher percentiles, 550, 600, 650. The families at the lower part, so somebody at 350, we might be funding at $50 a day. And a family receiving, we have a family receiving $57 a day, and that's $27,000 a year. And that's a huge impact to someone in the lower income. But my point is that everybody feels an impact, regardless of where these percentages are, and kind of deciding what works for the city and where you want Kids First to start. And again, the financial aid calculator has always been flexible, and being able to make these changes is great. So what we're asking for today is probably more of a flexible answer from you, like we can afford to fund an additional $250,000 for 2026, and then allow us to make the adjustments within the scale, make the changes, and then in 6 months, come to you and reevaluate and say, okay, that was not enough or that was too much. If it was too much, we'll tweak the scale again. But I think it's going to be a continually moving target, and for us to really consider where we want to start.
Thank you for that. And I think that it's really wise of you to keep your eyes on the stability and sustainability of the fund overall for consistency. We're all looking at the year 2027 when the Pickens County Airport is going to close for up to 9 months. We have no idea what effect that will have on tourism, although I know the Chamber is really trying to work with the Eagle and Grand Junction Airport and try to make sure, but a lot of the hotels are going to close for renovations since the airport's closed. And so, it's not enough just to look at where we're at right now when we think about the projections and sustainability, and again, not telling a family, sorry, we've had to drop you. We picked you up, but now we're dropped you, or we're dropping the amount. So I appreciate that consideration.
Yeah. And we also don't know how many families we'll get. When you open it up like that, you have no idea. And additionally, we all know this childcare conversation is happening everywhere, all up and down the valley, other states, all over. And we know that there are some other funding sources that are being talked about locally. And again, it's prudent of us to make a change, let people know we care, we're out there, we're going to work on it, but also not, again, make a change that might be changed by somebody else's funding coming down the road. So is it smart of us to wait and know that we will figure this out and that we are open to change? But again, I'm really interested in any questions or concerns, because it's hard to describe this whole process. It's much easier to address if you all have any questions.
I do have one other kind of comment question maybe before we answer this one. How does this weave in with the teacher subsidy and the sustainability of that program? Is that being considered to go right along? And what does the totality be of your budget then, and other, administrative costs and so on?
Okay, Megan's going to present on that. Would you prefer to go ahead and talk about that?
I think we should
First,
talk
and
about
then
it in
circle back.
context, to circle back. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
I don't know why it's not advancing. Justin, it's not advancing. I don't know why.
Her slides are not advancing. There.
It's good.
Okay.
And you got rid of the captions? No.
I don't think they're gone. I think it's on your side, though.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so we can kind of get the whole picture of what we're asking.
Yeah.
We'll share the options for expanding the early childhood wage enhancement program. This program helps teachers to cover real-life expenses, things like covering unexpected medical or dental bills, purchasing snow tires, paying rent, maybe paying for their child's participation in AVSC, something like that. The wage enhancement really ensures that teachers can earn that livable wage that City Council has prioritized. The current wage enhancement is scheduled to decrease each year and phase out entirely by 2027. So these estimated costs that we're looking at, they're based on extending the wage supplement program at a fixed level. So extending it at that $300 a month fixed level. And expanding eligibility to include all licensed child care providers in Pickens County. This expanded model could support the existing 68 educators. And in the 3 programs that are funded right now by the city, it could also be extended to approximately 138 full and part-time employees across the entire county. So presently, the city is funding the wage enhancement for the programs inside the city, and the county is subsidizing the programs that are outside of the city limits, but within Pickens County. So these recommendations would be to expand the wage enhancement to all of the educators inside of Pickens County.
Is Pickens County planning on continuing their subsidy in 2026?
They are, and they are phasing out at the end of 2027.
Okay.
So the smart thing to do would be to work with them, collaborate with them, so when theirs phases out, ours can pick up. And our recommendation would be to maintain that program at the $300 a month level, expand the eligibility to all the educators in Pickens County, and then also collaborate with Pickens County to make sure there's no, duplication of efforts and really to strengthen the program. The next page has our total ask, really, our recommendations. So we recommend that we adjust the financial aid calculations, like Nancy was talking about, by increasing that family income level to qualify, so it's at a higher level of income, and then by decreasing the child care cost percentages. And then we, like I was just saying, recommend extending the wage enhancement to all Pickens County teachers, early childhood teachers, to that $300 level. So the total request is between $500,000 and $600,000. And both programs vary depending on a lot of factors, like the 2 years that Pickens County will still be paying for their teachers' wage enhancement, and then also how many families apply for child care financial aid. And that's kind of our recommendation.
Okay. And so you're suggesting to pick up more of the all-county employees once they have faded out?
I mean, I think that's probably what makes sense. If we picked them up now, then the
They'd be
county
getting
would-
double dipping?
Yes, which,
Except that there is room for us to collaborate with the county and pay the difference, right? So everybody starting in 2026 gets the 300. Because theirs phases out. And
What is their
then-
phasing down to, 200 or?
You know, it's down by a certain percentage each year, and I don't know what the exact amount is, but we would collaborate with them to make sure that if we were doing 300 across the board, we were just picking up whatever those teachers aren't getting from the county.
Okay. And then what does this do to your total budget, though? You know, how close, how much reserve does it leave you with the
So-
projections for sales tax collection in 2026?
Do you have the memo?
Yeah.
So I think the city manager's comments at the end of the memo kind of address that. Our budget can afford to fund the 500 to 600 over sustainable, because we have been putting money into the reserve regularly and with the taxes. If we increase our budget this amount, we won't be able to continue to put funds into the reserve. And there might be some variances on that. I think Pete might be able to answer those better.
Yeah, I think capital obviously fluctuates from year to year if we have some improvements at the yellow brick or something like that. But by and large, we have a delta between money coming in and money going out in a given year that's around $750,000. Without hitting fund balance and starting to deplete fund balance in what we've built up to date, which could be used for something like a future childcare expansion project, this should be able to be afforded within the existing revenue stream.
Okay, thank you. And just one other clarification on this quote funding request, 600,000, just because we looked at some choices before, which choices have you built into that number?
So again, we can't give you exact amounts because we don't know. What we built in was up to $345,000 for the wage supplement. That would be the maximum amount. It would probably be less than that when we're collaborating. But when we got out to the year 2028, it would be the full 345. With the remainder, so if we adjusted our scale, it would be about $250,000 for the current 39 families. So again, we're kind of hedging our bet with up to $200,000 is being allocated. And we would get specific numbers in a resolution to you that were as specific as we could get with any of these, but you would know then exactly for year 2026, 300,000 would go to wage, and the remaining 200 or 300,000 would be allocated to financial aid.
Okay, and that covers you said you've gone from 39 to 49 families now?
Yeah.
That qualify. So that would cover those 49 families at the 10% of income level?
No, with the adjusted level, it's down to 7% at the lower, with that adjusted one, not our current one.
Can you
Okay.
go back to that slide?
Yeah.
It's
So you're
still a very
proposing-
level of support based on your income.
Right. I understand that, but we're potentially able to go to a higher percentage of
Slightly higher.
poverty level.
Yep, that's
Of
correct.
qualifying. No, I'm very happy with this. I just want to make sure I'm asking the right questions and that we're understanding what it all comes together as. And I do think it might have even been Sam who asked what would it take for us to get down to closer to 7% subsidy for families instead of 10%, closer to the recommended standard. And I don't think we can fully afford that across the board or at the higher income levels, but we can do some. And we're all kind of having to be in a wait and see mode about the passage of the CEE, the Valley-wide Child Care Education Program that is going to be on the November ballot, and see how we merge with that. That might very well help us take up some of this family subsidy going forward. We'd like to hope so. All right, council, if you guys would like to weigh in. Bill, I'll call on you in a minute. I see you online, but, he's got his hand up. Let's take a few comments for the table, Bill, and then you'd be able to comment on those comments as well. So who would like to jump in? John?
Sure. This is pretty simple for me. I actually, my first election, I ran on a platform of increasing child care accessibility. So this is important to me. And with Pete's reassurance that the funds are there, I don't see funding as an issue. I see a need. And so I want to support all the adjustments that are suggested.
Very good. Straightforward. Christine?
Yeah, I'm so appreciative of the work that went into this and the proposals that you've come forward with. I wasn't able to participate the first time around, and I'm happy to be here this time. And I think these are really solid recommendations that, as you suggest, can impact a lot of families. The wider we can get with helping people on all ends. So I'm supportive of everything proposed here. And I would like to have this conversation again in 6 months, as you suggested, or some sort of time frame that we can reevaluate how it's going and make adjustments if needed and see if we can even do more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think during the budget season, I have already requested that we take a look at the 0.45 cent sales tax and see what it would do to our housing budget if we increase the split from 75-25 to 80-20. And I don't know that council will agree with that, and we don't know what it'll do, but I did ask that we take a look. So that might give us a little more breathing room in there as well. Sam, your comments?
Yeah, I echo John, Christine. This is relatively straightforward, and also it's a situation where I trust you both and trust the Kids First board to do what's right and what's best for parents and teachers alike. So it really is a situation of the more the merrier. The more we can help out, the better this community and the parents and teachers are going to be. So as long as it's within the financial means, it's a very simple answer for me of yes, keep working hard to help as much as you can. So I'm very thankful.
Thank you, Sam. Bill, would you like to make your comments?
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. First thing I want to sort of mention, which is not part of the staff's request, but you touched on, Rachel, is this coming ballot question for the early childhood education district that's going to be on our ballots in November. And the reason I want to mention it now is because this is a great example of how much the city of Aspen already does for early childhood education and how much more we're willing to do. And I hope that voters consider that when they're addressing this ballot question, particularly because this early childhood education district will not discriminate where the funds are used versus where they're collected. And I think Aspen will contribute if that sales tax were passed, Aspen would contribute in a very meaningful way, and I don't know how much it would receive back. So I'm skeptical about that tax question, and I thought it was worth mentioning at this point in time, given this is great evidence of how much we have done and how much we continue to do. Secondly, on the two staff recommendations, I'm totally supportive of the first, and I think that's creative problem solving and thinking and reactive to what was asked by council of you. On the second question, I'm mostly supportive, but I'm a little bit nervous in how it plays out in a certain regard. There are sections of Pickens County that are in Redstone, as we all know. There are sections of Pickens County that are in Basalt. I don't know that it's the city of Aspen's responsibility or purview to be funding childcare in those places. So part of this is a question to make sure that I understood that correctly, that is something that could occur, number one. And number two, if it is, I ask, the other four of you, is that really something that we should be doing? Should we be focused on things that are within the urban growth boundary or within the city of Aspen limits? I understand how there are people who don't live in the city of Aspen limits who work in the city of Aspen and may send their kids to childcare outside of the city limits. So it's not lost on me, but some of it starts to feel a little far.
Thank you, Bill. I'll check in with council and see how folks feel. I also am very supportive of these recommendations and the work that you've put into reaching this. I agree certainly with Christina that we need to make sure we're following it closely and thinking about that future year where the airport is closed and hotels are closed, because that could really dent a lot of our sales tax collections across the board. And frankly, we have to keep our eye on whether it's a good snow year or whether we have international guests who still are willing to come to the United States anymore. You know, I mean, there's any number of signs that say we could be going into a recession and signs that say we aren't. So let's just keep a close tab on that. And Bill, I appreciate your comment about taking a look and your acknowledgement that we really don't provide within city limits all the childcare for the whole workforce that we have commuting here. And I'm supportive of the phase-in plan, as you're saying, as the county phases out. And we'll just see how far we can go with that. Unless we wanted to build another 100 childcare spaces in town real soon, I think it benefits us to support childcare outside of our municipal limits. So we do have a majority on that. You have direction. Is there anything else anyone needs to add? Nope. Thank you very much. We will take a short 4 or 5 minute break while they set up for the second presentation, which is the West End traffic study, and we'll go with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Grassroots TV on the 18th of August. We are now going to have the topic of West End neighborhood congestion. We've had our staff taking a look at this. We have received, I'd say, numerous letters with very detailed and slightly different concerns from the West End neighborhood. We really appreciate that and letting us know what's going on. We take the issue very seriously. I think it's fair to say we all know we're not going to see massive immediate movements until we really are able to get that entrance to Aspen resolved. But there are certainly a lot of things we can do in the meantime, and we're going to continue to focus on those today and beyond today and going forward. There's just simply no question about that. So I'll turn it over to our expert panel here and just introduce yourselves, and let's inform all of us of what you've found. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, we have an interdepartmental team presenting, and I'll have each of the team members introduce themselves. Let me start with myself. I am Tricia Aragon, and I'm the city engineer.
Hi, I am Kyla Smits, and I am a project manager within the engineering department.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kim Ferber, the police chief.
Thank you all for being here.
And Lynn Rumbaugh, your transportation department director.
Thank you.
And Tyler Kristoff, deputy city manager.
Thank you all.
Additionally, with the people at
Online?
the table, we also have supporting department members in the audience. We have the Parks Department, and I believe we have environmental health either here
Yes.
or online.
Yes, you do.
There you go. So thank you.
Thank you.
So to start, congestion has been an issue in the West End for many years. As a result, the city has responded in several ways. And we've been able to count at least 17 different measures over the years that have been instituted in the West End. These measures are outlined in the memo and range from safety measures to protect vulnerable users, such as pedestrians and bikes, to TDM measures, that's traffic demand management measures, to reduce traffic, and notable measures such as stop sign additions and reductions in the speed limits, in addition to increased enforcement in the area. Here's a list of the neighborhood concerns that we've received through public comment recently. Some of these are issues that we've seen over the years, and some of them are new. Most of them relate to volume and volume of traffic in the West End. With that, this is a figure showing the volumes. As far as speeds, we did analyze speeds, and we found that the speeds really haven't changed over the years. They've remained around, it ranges depending on the street, from 14 miles an hour up to 17 miles an hour. So all within the speed limit. This figure shows volumes that we're seeing in the West End. So the thicker the green line and the wider the line is, relates to a higher volume. And as you can see in this figure, we have our highest volumes on Smuggler Street and Bleecker Street, in addition to 7th Street. Now, I want to note about volumes. 70% of the volumes that we see stay on Main Street, and that 30% of volumes exiting town, and I'm talking about the PM peak time, 30% of that is distributed throughout the West End.
In terms of TDM measures, a variety of options are offered in the West End. These include our Crosstown Shuttle, the Music Festival Shuttle, which operates in the summer, Downtowner service, several WeCycle stations, a car share vehicle, and our employer services that we offer to several employers that are located in the West End. Of note, regionally, you know that the Fare Free service is coming this fall, and some marketing and appreciation events along with that. At the RAFTA board level, you will see some discussion of additional capacity on Mid-Valley regional routes as a discussion in September and October. Any questions on TDM measures?
And by Mid-Valley, I think you're talking about the BRT picking up there all the way up to Aspen? So starting in the Mid-Valley, but not just circulating in the Mid-Valley?
Exactly. So trying to relieve that full bus sign that you might see as that bus comes up Valley by filling in the Mid-Valley with some of that BRT service.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, for the viewing public, the fare-free experiment is to see how many more people would be captured on RAFTA and not driving their cars into town, relieving some of the congestion on Highway 82. I think, I may have not expressed it well at the beginning, but we have a failed entrance and we have too many cars on the entrance, and that's why people are taking this detour through the West End. You know, it's a logical conclusion for a lot of people. The fare-free experiment, again, is taking about $550,000. Half of that was put in by Aspen, Snowmass, and Pete County collectively as the elected officials, Transportation Committee, and the other half was put in just straight from Lynn's budget here in the city of Aspen, which is the budget we need to replace buses in the future. But thank you for that. I just want to say we are working with our other agencies as possible. And the city has committed to re-enter the record of decision preferred alternative reevaluation process and have allocated $2.5 million to Jacobs Engineering to begin that work, which again, you know, solving the real fundamental problem that's causing all this overflow will take multiple measures. It's more than just infrastructure, but we have to get the infrastructure together as well. So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to keep adding a little context to what we know this problem is.
From the police department perspective, we approached this with a couple different buckets. First of all, we wanted
And really
to-
loud, Kim, these don't amplify for people in the room. They just amplify for the grassroots audience.
Sure. From the police department perspective, we looked at this through a lens of like several different buckets. So the first one was, how do we respond as quickly as possible to the community's concerns about the traffic safety that they were seeing in the West End? And so we immediately, effective July 22nd, started holding 2 officers from day shift over on overtime, and then we had 1 night shift officer come in early. That has resulted between July 22nd and August 15th with 147 traffic stops in the West End. So that was kind of our first approach, our first bucket. The second one is, how do we assist our community members in reporting traffic concerns to us, and how can we provide timely feedback to them? And so we have created a space in 2 different locations on our website where people can report a concern, get immediate feedback from a supervisor, and there's a drop down that allows us to identify specific locations and what violations they're seeing for our response. And then the third piece of that is, you know, looking more long-term. What can we do? Overtime for the police officers is not ideal in terms of fatigue for them. And so we are standing up a pilot traffic position. It'll be effective next week. We'll be meeting this week to talk more specifically about it, but we're looking at running that position through the end of October. That person will not only be working in the West End, but throughout the city on any traffic complaints, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then a couple other sidebar things that we're doing is we have deployed our VMS signs, and we are using those in that area. And we also have a new speed feedback sign, and we're deploying that in the West End as well.
Okay, and a VMT is a variable message?
Variable messaging signs, yes.
Okay, thank you. I always try to catch the acronyms for the public. And I think we all noted in the report, you are having to use officers with overtime. And I think this council, I know I sure am very supportive of you being as staffed as needed. We're going to have the same issues in the West End come December, and it's even worse with the snow. And then, you know, ongoing. I think that until we've seen new measures related to transportation demand management, and I think Pete and our management staff and parking staff are working on some of those, and see the entrance built, we're going to have to work on interim measures and do what we can to manage what we can and try to get more people with more buses through the intercept lot, perhaps even seeing if we can contract with RAFTA for additional ones beyond what they do with the BRT. Maybe that will pick up all the slack. But we're just gonna have to keep adding measures and looking for things that make a difference as we go forward. But please continue.
The engineering department currently has been partnering with the Parks Department on additional vehicle barriers and signage on the Hopkins Ped Bikeway. We installed these this summer with the intention of testing out this solution on our more heavily used Ped Bikeway. We have so far received positive feedback from both the police department and the community about the effectiveness of these vehicle turn barriers. We have, with volume counts, seen a reduction of about 9.5% on vehicle usage on Hopkins. Some of the staff recommendations, which were outlined in detail in the memo, are kind of in two different buckets, pedestrian improvements and enforcement changes. So staff recommends for pedestrian improvements, looking to install those vehicle barriers on West Hallam Street, doing additional pedestrian walkways, such as the one on 4th Street somewhere else in the West End, doing bulb outs at key intersections to provide more pedestrian space at key crossings. And for enforcement changes, we are recommending installing one-way alley signs, making the alleys in the West End one-way from west to east, doing additional speed limit sign installations and painting stop bars at stop signs that do not have them. And then we are also recommending that we can do research into restrictions on Power Plant Road, which might help reduce volumes utilizing that thoroughfare.
So with that, we'd like to ask council if there's any clarifying questions regarding the memo and the presentation. And then we want to go into what recommendations does council support, and then what other recommendations do you want staff to pursue?
Okay, thank you very much. Council members, any clarifying questions? Yeah, please.
One of the slides you showed had intensity lines, and I think there was Bleecker. That's right next to the yellow brick, which is essentially a school. Has there ever been a conversation about, and would there be any benefit to making that a school zone? Because that's where the preschools are.
Mm-hmm. It is a school zone on, I don't know if Bleecker is designated as a school zone, but we do have it on the other sides of the yellow brick, but I'd have to clarify on Bleecker whether that is, but we can look into that.
Christine, going from memory, I believe Hallam Street and I think it's First Street are school zones. I can't remember if Bleecker is, to Tricia's point, but
Okay.
they're signed as such.
Yeah, I've seen the signs, but like the school district school zone feels different than that school zone over there, because to go slow at the school district, but I don't think people are really aware that there's a lot of little kids running around right there. That seems like a prime space for safety.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's always really concerned me as it's doubled, and you can be really careful with toddlers, but boy, they know how to escape. And I don't want to see any one of them out there on that road. Can you give us a little more detail, though, on what you mean by potentially restricting traffic on Power Plant Road? Do you mean by vehicle type or weight or size or anything like that?
These are all options that we would have to explore. There are services and private residences that utilize that road, and so doing restrictions explicitly based off of weight or type may not be possible or enforceable due to the nature of the fact that the streets department has their primary location down at that down at the bottom of Power Plant, and private residents having to list all possible vehicles that they may or may not have going into their residences might cause issues with that, so further investigation would need to be done.
Okay, thank you for that. Bill, we see your hand up. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, thank you. Just some clarifying questions to start with. First one I'd like to ask is, what have we tried that hasn't worked so far? Like, what should we make sure that we're not re-suggesting that you have tried and proven not to be successful?
Some of those were listed in the memo. We've done things like turning restrictions on Power Plant Road onto Cemetery Lane. We've done some Cemetery Lane. I'm looking at Lynn.
The one that jumps to mind is the Power Plant Road restriction, which
Failed.
created some dangerous situations. Let's see, what was the Cemetery Lane restriction you're
Controlling the
thinking of?
intersection lights with the
Oh, yeah,
police
timing the
officer, that's not
lights. We've
effective
done that.
strategy.
That can be a little tricky as well.
Yeah, so what they're talking about, Bill, is the cemetery light, using a police officer at that light to direct traffic, and that has not been, it's not recommended, and it hasn't been successful. Some of the things we've tried is a Stay on Main campaign. It's where we've had like the banner and public outreach, encouraging people to stay on Main. I'm not sure how successful that was in changing behavior. That's a good question, Bill.
Okay, I'll move into my second question. Have we ever reached out to Google Maps and Waze and Apple Maps and asked whether they'd be open to not divert people there unless 82 was closed?
They will not alter their maps unless we codify a particular, let's say Power Plant Road, and we say no large vehicles up to 8 tons not allowed on power plant. Then they would modify their maps, but we'd have to do some kind of codified rule for them to change their maps.
Perfect. And that assumes anyone's actually plugging in what type or size of vehicle they're in when they're using their phone for Google Maps, which I imagine is pretty low as a percentage.
Bill, no, it won't, because it has a load restriction on it. It won't. They wouldn't bring that route up as a regular route for people to utilize.
Regardless of what that load restriction was?
I believe so.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's certainly something I'd encourage you to explore then. Last question, and then if Rachel wants, I can roll right into comments unless others have questions. But my last question is, do we have, Kim, do we have any data on the number of tickets or traffic infractions that we've issued citations on since you've started these efforts?
Yeah, I would say that we're pretty consistent with our annual enforcement strategies, which is about 5% historically for the police department. I would anticipate seeing an increase with the pilot project because there'll be some specific guidance given to that position, that's their primary purpose.
And so you're saying,
So
Kim?
5% means of like encounters, 5% result in a citation? Is that what that 5% means?
Yes, that's correct.
And the others are warning and instructions?
Yes.
Okay, Bill, I think I am going to keep taking a few comments at the table, and then we'll come back around to you. Okay?
No problem.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go, Sam.
You moved quickly on one of the slides. I was wondering, there's been a lot of talk about noise violation citations and the progress on that. Did I miss that? Did you touch on that at all? Is that something that can be looked at or even enforced? I know there's been some passionate citizens that have their own machines to check on these.
Yeah, definitely. Noise enforcement currently operating within the city is based completely on a complaint notice, and we do progressive enforcement. So when we do receive a noise complaint, which currently are most often for music within restaurants and other businesses, it's usually a discussion and an education outreach, verbal warning, written warning, and then a ticket. And so any noise enforcement complaints would be handled currently that way because that's how it's codified. But staff can partner with environmental health and our code enforcement staff member and can research opportunities for noise reduction efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the slide. I just know that what you described is very different than loud vehicles in the West End and how disturbing that can be. It's one thing to have cars in your neighborhood. It's another thing to have to notice them even when you're trying not to visually. And I know there's like advanced technology now on these sort of things. And I don't know how it would go over. I really don't always love like artificial enforcement of things, but this is just something I would be interested in hearing more about if the technology's there, what other communities do.
Staff can definitely look into something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Another question?
No, that's it.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on that one then.
Okay, cool.
You know, I'm glad Sam touched on that because I think it's something we may have to look at our actual new noise code as well to see, you know, does it deal effectively with moving vehicles? And in the past, it was really just pretty much about hotels or mall noise or, you know, whatever could happen and was for a sustained period. But in particularly, I've heard that I've physically heard it, that there's a lot of cars that honk at the four-way stop signs. They honk when the car in front of them doesn't move fast enough, and they honk when they think somebody has, you know, cut in front of them when it wasn't really their turn on a four-way stop. And so I'm not sure that the four-way stops have helped the situation or they've added to the noise. And they may have slowed people down, but they're adding to another set of problems. And so again, I know, you know, when it's a moving vehicle, it's a little more of a problem, but I have thought about the county dealing with the landfill had to put the posting no Jake brakes, you know, making sure nobody's using those extra loud brakes on the trucks. And I'd love to see us looking at the noise code as well to see what we can go forward with. I'm participating, as well as others, with the 21st Century Transportation Coalition. And the one idea that they have introduced is both congestion pricing and also cordon, to be cordoned off specific areas of cities unless you have a specific permit to be able to go through them or use them. So if you were a delivery truck coming to one of the residential areas there, you would be, or service vehicle or something, you would be permitted in. But other vehicles are not. And I don't know what that would take. Or, you know, the West End was a safety valve for this community for a long time, for not allowed them to not deal with the entrance, frankly. And the entrance in 2023 was kind of queued up to go forward and get some of the Biden infrastructure money, and that opportunity was passed by previous decisions and trying to investigate other alternatives. I can understand that. But until we really are able to get cars effectively onto Main Street and them to know that is the fastest and that is the right way to exit our town, we're just going to be battling this, you know, one gopher at a time kind of thing. So for me, I really appreciate the work that's been done. I'd like to keep looking for more. And I'd like to make sure that we have the staff to really deal with the fact that traffic is going to be one of our major issues, whether it's in the downtown core, whether it's, you know, people Independence Pass, you know, whatever, coming into town and speeding. We're all seeing more reckless driving in every part of town, frankly. When the more frustrated people get, the more likely they are to make an illegal move. And so I want to make sure we're not burning out our existing police force. These people work hard already. They have a special event every weekend to deal with or whatever. And so I want to make sure we're able to manage this without burning out our current staff. I do want to think a little about signage. You know, I've had that suggestion from one of the residents there saying, you know, can we remind people that this is a residential neighborhood, you know, or you know, ask that there not be through traffic. I know that takes enforcement to, you know, that's a next step up. But if we're having to deal with this for another 3 to 5 years, we're going to have to step up. And so we have to figure out what those methods are. And if no through traffic means more enforcement, well, what does it really mean? You know, bring it back to us with dollars, bring it back and so that we can find a way to really move this forward. The other thing that I was thinking about was just a comment that Jacobs Engineering has told us that 34% of the traffic that enters Aspen during the day leaves across Power Plant Road and through the West End. And that's just really unacceptable. And, you know, again, I think it's easy enough for people to have let it go. It's only 15% of the traffic. It's only 20% of the traffic. It's only 25% of the traffic. But it's gotten to a point now where people don't even look at Main Street. They don't even see if it's crowded. They just turn behind the Hotel Jerome when they're coming from Red Mountain, and they're on that path. And it's taken over every other side street. If you go back to the intensity map, when you're over there, people are going all the way down on, say, like 5th Street to get to West North, and then they come back up West North to 7th. You know, they do these, every single road there is just filled with cars far beyond what that residential neighborhood would normally attract. It's not residences. And it's just gone on for too long, and we're going to have to do what we can as a community to deal with this and to move the entrance along as quickly as possible. For this reason, for wildfire evacuation reason, to support the mass transit, for multiple reasons. But the impacts, and I do want to say one thing, the impacts are affecting all the way up McLean Flats and Cemetery Lane. The impacts are affecting the Castle Maroon route, so the buses don't run on time. When they can't get up there, people drive instead of take the bus. So it's the failed entrance is not just backing up Main Street anymore. It's ruining our livability throughout multiple neighborhoods. And it was said at the beginning, but it's a volume problem. We have too much volume of cars trying to come into this town. We have a commuting workforce. I've said if we put this into AI and ask them what to do, they tell us to build another 1,000 units in town where it can be walkable, and we wouldn't have to be bringing people up from Rifle. But that's where we are now. So we have to acknowledge that reality and figure out what else we can do. Are there other ideas or suggestions? I mean, you've kind of dismissed the turning off Cemetery Lane light, that it doesn't really work. Could you explain for our audience why that doesn't really work or what it does?
No human can operate a light as well as the light can operate itself. And so it becomes, and Kim can regenerate on what it takes and what it looks like when you do these kinds of things. Manual
operation?
Yeah, the manual operation has to occur in more than one location. So if we were to decide to have an officer or to take 2 officers at Cemetery Lane, we'd have to do that for the other intersections as well, and they would all have to be in sync on timing of when they would allow it to flow. They have attempted to have police officers work the light at Cemetery Lane for a very short period of time. This was before I became the police chief, and my understanding is that we created some safety issues for neighbors that lived in that area with them getting in and out of their driveways as well as for the police officers.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard before it's not really effective, although people kind of think something's happening because they see an officer there, but it really isn't moving the traffic any faster.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Other comments or anything that struck anybody as we're talking about this?
Comments, no questions.
Okay, comments for John, and then we'll come to you, Bill, for comments as well.
So first of all, I just want to say that I'm really grateful that we have a traffic counter on Power Plant Road, so we actually have an actual number, because West End residents have been telling us for years how bad it is, and we've all known it's bad, but we actually have a real number, and that number is 34%, and that's a third of our traffic leaving through the West End. I'm grateful for the vehicle barriers on Hallam. One of them, or I'm sorry, Hopkins, one of them is near my place, and it definitely works. They have definitely slowed down traffic and made it so people don't go all the way down Hopkins. I would agree with Rachel. Our biggest relief valve for this West End traffic problem isn't really going to occur until the new entrance to Aspen is complete, and then I don't think the problem is going to completely go away, but it'll be significantly changed. And I also want to say that I'm aware that some of the measures we've taken in the West End have solved one problem in one area, but usually shifted that problem to another area. So again, I'm glad we're taking all these different steps. I think we should be thinking hard about what else we can do. And I'm reminded of former councilperson Ward Howenstein, who one of his favorite sayings was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's what we're doing here, is tackling this with small solutions to a very large problem.
Thank you, John. Bill, comments?
Thanks. I don't think this is super necessary to say, but, I totally get and understand this issue. I think it's a serious issue. We have done a lot so far, which I'm deeply grateful for our staff for implementing. Some of it has gone against our staff's recommendation, and I know that's difficult. But we're dealing with sort of uncharted waters here, and I think trying what we can and seeing what works and what doesn't work is all that we can do. I think that this problem is a symptom of our greater issue, which Rachel spoke at length about the entrance to Aspen. But I do think that we can make meaningful progress on this problem and other problems by implementing a series of creative solutions, one of which is a revised entrance to Aspen, but that is by no means a silver bullet. It has to be done in concert with a variety of other things, which our staff is working hard on, and is one of council's goals for this current council term. So again, thank you to staff for all the work that you have done so far on this and everything that you will do moving forward on it. A couple of suggestions that I had that weren't discussed. One is, and I know that this will come with different problems. That's not lost on me, but I think over time it might work well, and I'd like to at least experiment with it. The first suggestion is, right now we allow right turns onto Bleecker Street from Mill Street, North Mill Street. And it feels like we're almost putting out a welcome mat for people to drive through the West End by allowing that right turn. And I'm wondering if we should disallow that right turn, at least during certain hours of the day. I think it's an open invitation to sort of continue through the West End. And I don't think we've tried that before. I didn't hear Trish mention that, but I do think that's something I'd like to explore and see what happens if we restricted the right turn off of Mill during afternoon rush hours. Secondly, I'm super grateful for the increased police presence. It is being felt in the West End, but I do think that we should increase enforcement and consequences. I don't think that just having police sit there is a permanent solution. And if they're called away to go to something, the same behavior will just sort of repeat itself if people aren't afraid of the consequences. And so I'm supportive of directing Kim to have a heavier hand in that effort if others are as well. And lastly, just John mentioned the pedestrian bulb-outs or the things that we're experimenting with on Hopkins do seem to really be working. I take Hopkins on my bike and foot a lot, and it does definitely seem to be working, and wondering if we should experiment with that elsewhere in the West End, because I think it very successful, positive results that I've anecdotally experienced. And witnessed. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I think that's well appreciated. Any other council comments or additions here? I mean, I would like to, again, go back to the idea of signage, that there, a constituent called me to say, when they were repairing the bridge and they were doing the double flush and using the West End for an exit formally, I think a lot of people got used to that and they forgot it's a residential neighborhood, and that just became their route. And, to remind people that it's a residential neighborhood with some signage. And I'd love to look at Bill's idea about no right turns. I know it's a bigger than just an experiment because it would affect the timing on the traffic light on Main Street. And I will tell you, because I live on that side of town, I believe that a lot of people take that turn when they already see all the traffic backed up at the Hotel Jerome to take a right onto Main Street. And with the pedestrian crossing there as well, not that much traffic is able to get through each time, especially if the Hotel Jerome has a car out front there too. But if there was to be something along those lines, it really would have to change the signalization on Main Street as well, either along a right hand on red, and maybe that can coincide with the left hand coming down Mill Street, because that queue lane has been backing all the way up into the Carl's Light lately. So, we have traffic problems everywhere. It's not just the volume there, but it's the sheer volume. It's the sheer magnitude of cars that we're trying to manage. And that is, I think, all I really have on my notes. I agree with Bill about ticketing and having some real consequence be part of the activity. That makes a real difference. I think continuing to track it, I think trying the West End bulb out. Seems like almost everybody here was agreeing with all the measures that they have suggested for continuing, and particularly I like the school posting, make sure it's, maybe get bigger signs that say they're in a school, so people can get a little sign fatigue and just not see them anymore after a while.
I would point out about Christine's suggestion, she's right, that we have flashing lights out by the school district, and we don't really have those by the yellow brick. Maybe that's something that could be employed. We have them at the 8th Street bus crossing. I don't know, just.
Yep. Something to think about.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
I just to piggyback on that, I think I'm in support of most of the proposals up here. For me, and what we've heard from neighbors is there's a quality of life issue and then there's a safety issue. And so my focus, or what I would encourage, is prioritizing the safety issues, because that's obviously the most important thing is people's safety. Quality of life is, I feel horribly for everyone who lives out there and is dealing with this, but we really want to keep people safe. So any of the proposals that make those go forward, and so some of those I think are the pedestrian barriers that you have on Hallam, on Bleecker. Those are a summer fix, correct? Is there anything that we can do in the winter that's similar to that, that kind of keeps those streets open?
It's definitely something we can look into. Currently, our biggest hindrance, as always, in the winter with the ped bikeways is snow plowing operations and any sort of permanent installation. When you combine street parking that's still allowed on those ped bikeways with snow plowing, it's really hard to leave a permanent installation in.
Okay. Yeah, we maybe think of, I understand that, just if there's some way to continue that through the season. And then the other one that jumps out to me is the one-way in the alleys as a safety fix that's low-hanging that we could do to prevent those people cutting through.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sam?
Well, I feel funny saying this one because I don't know if I support it at all, but you talked about it, I think, at your meetings as far as congestion pricing. And I only bring it up because I do not know enough about it at all, but it's been brought up by citizens to consider in this neighborhood, which is merely a curiosity at this point for me. As far as what Bill asked, what have we not done? So I know we haven't done that, so I don't know if we have information on that. So I just want to at least exhaust all the things. And there might be others that I'm like forgetting about because I'm going through old emails of citizens in that neighborhood talking about what they would suggest, and that's the only one that I feel like that they're suggesting that's not already been suggested. Otherwise, some things that have already been mentioned that might be able to be improved upon that I know about are just people that over there don't want sidewalks, but if there can be more established pedestrian corridors along the road, well painted and well marked. I don't know if they need something similar to what we have downtown with not the traffic cones, but the
Street asphalt painting.
yeah, well, not even just the painting, but also the markers. Yeah, to make sure that no one's getting turn a corner, especially. And then I know it's also talked about, but we talk about what we can do now. Something that I'm also very interested in, once again, don't know if I fully support it, but like very interested in exploring, is metering on Highway 82 to allow use of like cars within the bus lanes at times. And I say metering because you can't allow too many cars in the bus lanes to get people off the bus, but you can do that to relieve congestion from time to time, which I think would be a huge benefit to this community, to utilize those lanes better without getting people off the bus and try to have it both ways.
Yeah.
Especially since we seem to have maxed out bus ridership, especially with issues with hiring and retention on the RAFTA side of things. So I think one of the best things you could do now potentially for the West End that I think might work would be metering on Highway 82 to get more cars flowing on the actual highway and out of the West End. Other than that, I feel like this work session's kind of, I don't know, it's a sadder work session, the fact that I just don't feel like we're doing a whole lot, and I just want to recognize that as much as we try to do a whole lot, but it's rehashing a lot of old ideas. So I just wanted to summarize where my head's at as far as one that I don't think we've ever explored and I don't know if I'd be supportive of, and another one that intrigues me more. But otherwise, it does seem relatively tough to deal with until maybe that traffic group you're in comes up with more solutions related to like metering that actually help with relief, so.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up, and I want to chime in on a couple things. Kurt from Ravensslug, thanks, I have a hard time pronouncing that name. He is sitting on the 21st Century Committee, and at the last meeting, he had to stand up at the end to answer a question. He goes, I really have to correct some misinformation here. We are not over capacity. We just got the new housing project. We're as staffed as we've been in the past 3 years, and we're looking to add more buses this year. I know, just to, because he was a little sensitive on that.
Fair.
And I just, because that had gotten out there. And a meeting ago, I asked that he prepare what does RAFTA do? How many people does it move? How many routes? How many buses? How many drivers? What's the budget? Give all of us a new, 2025 look at where RAFTA is now, and so that we can look to improvements and things like that. So they are working on that, and they're going to have it for the best meeting. I think that the preferred alternative is our opportunity to look at how the managed lane, the bus-only lane, can function in the future. And once we could have true HOV enforcement and allow HOV or other public or transit vehicles in there, we'll have to see how that goes through the screening of the EIS. But that certainly is something, one of the reasons we're taking a look at it. But it also just really does bring me back to the traffic lights question, that the lights do better than any human could, but can we talk to CDOT and double check on any of the lighting possibilities? If Cemetery Lane lights stayed green for a minute longer and the Truscott, stayed red, and the Truscott light stayed red for a minute longer, I know we're talking about incrementals here, but I think that to the extent we can get the traffic lights working a little better. I noticed it the other day coming in from a Down Valley meeting, the light at Buttermilk, it turned, the light to go into Burlingame turned green, but the light at Buttermilk had not. So there was no movement, and we all realize that happens a lot. But let's just talk to CDOT and see if we can indulge the patience of people on those side roads a little longer by 60 seconds, 90 seconds more, and try to get the traffic flowing a little better. Trish.
Okay, so I would like to summarize the direction from council. What I'm hearing is that, first of all, I'm hearing support for all of the staff recommendations listed here.
Yes, I didn't hear objections to any of those.
In addition to that, I heard limiting right turn on Bleecker, possibly during the PM peak time. That will require a little more analysis as far as the timing and the light, but we'll go ahead and do that. I also heard neighborhood signage in the West End. I heard additional ticketing and enforcement. I heard school zone posting, possibly flashing lights. I heard investigate noise enforcement
And potentially code changes we might need to really effectuate that with moving vehicles.
Okay. The managed lane, that'll be ETA Jacobs. I also heard congestion pricing in the West End.
Not as a support, but as like,
Okay, all right.
as like information.
Get more information about it.
Okay.
And actually, that 21st Century Committee might be able to give you all the information they've already dug up about both congestion pricing and cordoning, where you just simply don't allow vehicles in certain parts of your city or your neighborhood or whatever, unless they have a specific permit because they live there or they're renting there or delivering there. It is an enforcement issue as much as putting up signs, but those are the two other kind of next step traffic control measures out there. We keep saying TDMs, it's traffic demand management programs, and paid parking is one of those. All the other things you guys explained that we do to try to keep people out of their cars. But we may be getting up to the next level of what we need to do to maintain a pedestrian-oriented town.
And then the last thing I heard about is traffic lights and optimizing traffic lights. I can.
And that's
tell
on
you-
82, yeah.
Yeah, and I can tell you, CDOT will say, tell me or tell us, what specifically needs to be done. And so they will look to us to do an analysis of the lights, and I would go to Jacobs for that, since their work is similarly involved with the lights, and have them look at those lights and see what can be optimized, and then go to CDOT with that plan.
Okay.
It would be that approach on that.
And Trish, do you know when I have no idea how sophisticated the computers are that they use for the lights. Can they have a longer time period, say from 3 to 6 or 2 to 7 in the afternoon, and then not have, and then have it does have to be one set time throughout the 24-hour day, or are they able to shift it for different times of the day?
Most likely it can be shifted. What the limiting part is the actual traffic cabinet itself and the space that it has to have these other options within the programming for it. So most likely, yes.
Okay, well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to find out what they can do. Because it wouldn't have to be 24/7. It's obviously an evening, out-of-town type of rush.
It's probably just worth noting, too, we don't give board reports on the 21st Century Coalition, but that board and that group is coming the goal is at the end of the year to come forward with a set of recommendations on things like congestion pricing. Tyler's sitting in those meetings now since Jen's gone. So there is a whole effort that's happening, and there will be a whole nother set of ideas coming forward, and I think making a formal recommendation to local governments on congestion in Aspen, but also wider.
Thank you for that. That's a good clarification, because it's not as if you do one thing and it's a silver bullet. Congestion pricing wouldn't be. It would have to be paired with rideshare apps and true HOV enforcement and, multiple other measures. So we'll take a look at all those. This has
Rachel,
been... Oh, yeah, Bill, please.
Comment, if I may. Further to Rachel's request on signal timing and Trish, what you said about engaging Jacobs for some of that insight, I'd appreciate if you could also ask them to look at the pedestrian crossing at 8th Street. I've mentioned this before, but I'm a super heavy user of that crossing, and it's always sort of struck me as kind of ridiculous that that's an on-demand flasher at this point in time. And I think that we could easily convert that to, the maximum amount of times it can go off per 5 minutes or whatever, some sort of different, white man, red hand type of crossing that might allow traffic to flow a little bit smoother.
So you're kind of saying, Bill, that if people push the button, they would have to wait a couple minutes and then it would turn flashing and say go, as opposed to right now it just starts flashing right away and people, for every one person, so that it would be a little more like a traffic light that, you need to wait here for the safe moment to cross. Is that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the different options are in that sort of spectrum of types of pedestrian crossings, but what we have right now can be very disruptive to traffic patterns. And it's not really, I know that we like to prioritize pedestrians and I'm generally supportive of that, but I don't think it's so necessary at that intersection to have instant on-demand crossing always.
We can certainly have Jacobs look at that. It would not be a rapid flash then at that intersection. It would be a robust kind of signalized intersection for pedestrians. Because when people press that button, regardless if the lights turn on or off, because there are times when it doesn't work, people will cross regardless. And that's the nature of human
crosswalks.
behavior. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at it and bring it back and
I'd love
let
to
us
see
see
what the options might be and what recommendations might be. Because again, I've seen just a series of, 4 or 5 different groups of pedestrians hit that flasher one after the other. Next thing you know, you've got like a 40-second, 50-second, whatever it might be, interruption to traffic, where it could have been a 10-second interruption to traffic if they were grouped together.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
This has been a long public meeting, and I've seen a few members of the public here who are concerned with it. Would you care to make any public comments on this issue? You seem to be the only ones here, and if you would like to, please come up. And we are close to the end of the meeting, but would love to hear your feedback, having sat through. Yeah, right where she is, where there's a microphone. Thank you, Trish. Yeah, as long as there's a green light on. Thank you. And just identify yourself for our record.
Hey, David Mulkey. We live on Bleecker Street, and obviously, it seems like all these controls you've given have sort of squeezed things down to certain streets like Bleecker and Smuggler and so on. But you've talked about noise, and there's so much heavy equipment, diesels, dump trucks, and so on that make so much noise. Decreasing the congestion, I'm not sure works, but it seems like maybe those should be on Main Street. I'm not sure, but those diesels are really, really noisy.
I agree with
I have
that.
other things, but I don't want to take up the time.
Thank you for making a comment. We appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else who had a comment? There being none, I will say thank you very much, and thank you to our staff for the hard work on this. We know it's kind of pushing the rock up the hill type of challenge, but we're going to make it. Thank you so much, And that would be the end of our work session, unless anybody wants to bring up something from the information item stuff. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We do not have a meeting tomorrow night. We'll have two next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.